3, 2, 1. Hey, we're back another week, and it's the Ace of Clubs week. And before we got on, it kind of took us a minute because we were having a interesting conversation around the Neptune energy, the Queen of Hearts substances, and it is also Ace of Clubs week. And the Ace of Clubs sits in Mars. No, it's not Mars. Saturn for the Queen of Hearts. Venus,
It's their Saturn card, I think.
Yeah. The Ace of, and it kind of started out. Gina was talking about coffee and mushrooms and how they can kind of help. And I look at like the Ace of Clubs as like a card of coffee as well as like had like super hyper energy. And we were talking about the Queen of Hearts and weed and marijuana and like going into like psychedelics and using drugs for escaping, your emotional, social environment, sometimes. And does it disconnect you from your higher self was one of the questions that came up as well, using drugs. So I
nice
was
reframer, Sean.
yeah. So I always find it interesting looking at drugs and substances and the cards and their relationships, because a lot of different cards do have relationships, I think, with drugs and substances, especially the Queen of Hearts. Like I said, Queen of Hearts and Ace of Clubs. I think sometimes all hearts. I think it's sometimes like an emotional thing. Where it could be emotional escapism, or it can just be the feeling, how it makes you feel.
That would be so cool to do, like a study in the bars to see how many hearts people are on the stools.
Or 7 of diamonds.
Oh yeah, the 7 of diamonds has a 9 of hearts. But like, let's do
all of them.
What's your birthday? Yeah.
We just come in with a hat.
We're doing research for the universe.
Y'all got problems. Emotional shit you're holding on to.
7 of hearts, 3 of hearts. I need all y'all to come.
Oh my god, I feel very violated right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just curious. I'm wondering, like, wow, that's for like a real thing, right?
It is, especially when it comes to the cards. I mean, it's 52 cards, so it's like, what's the odds? Everyone can have their own based on astrology as well. But I've really seen like the 7 of diamonds really usually have some type of substance abuse connected a lot of times. Or the Queen of Clubs, I don't know about the Queen of Hearts too many, to be honest. But I do know as far as you there?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. I was pushing buttons.
I think I do know like a few Queen of Hearts, and then they're not really drinkers though, So, but they are smokers.
Or they could even indulge in food, and there's not just to that psychedelic. There's that indulging in pleasure in many different places. Now, speaking of the Ace of Clubs, in the pure spread, it sits Venus Neptune, and that so it has that Neptunian. Pleasure. Venus and Neptune would be a lot of pleasure. A lot of actually, I think Venus and Neptune are doing something this week, today, tomorrow, with this full moon energy. So interesting how that plays out. And it's an Ace of Clubs week. Right? So
and that you're so good at that part, honey. I'm really loving the way you're activating all these parts. It's beautiful.
Yeah, especially on the Vante, the astrology.
Yeah, dude.
It's weird. He's your Mercury. Y'all really do sound like it's scary.
What'd you say?
We can hear you.
Yeah, you broke up.
I said y'all sounded like connection.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And he's your Mercury card. I was like, wow, they sound like just alike. It's kind of weird. I was like, was that like an auditory thing? Because I know you was in like some of his classes, like maybe listen to him a lot. But then I'm like, no, that's just how Gina kind of sounds.
And it's like, we've done, like, he's done a few Zooms and he's talking with his hands. So do I. I'm like, oh my God, it's crazy. I'm always like this. Like, people are like, I remember one time I was out with somebody. He's like, can you like calm that down? People are going to think you're going to hit me. I'm sorry. I can't help it. It's just how I talk. So, but you get very like animated. You get very excited. And that's one thing I like about Vante, that 9 of Clubs energy is big. You know, that, and that's just the 9 of Clubs in general. They're big. You know, they're the 9. So it's a very universal energy. And I think that's why that we, you know, we come together in a really good way to be able to, you know, be on the same page and have that capacity, I guess, that 9 of Clubs energy to really deliver the message and it be in a very like understandable way. You know, I've always said, just make it make sense. And astrology, there's so many layers to it. And when I first was in, you know, trying to figure out my sun sign, my moon sign, my rising sign, I was really excited to learn about astrology, but I found it very overwhelming to kind of really comprehend and to, like, you're looking at the chart, you're like, okay, I see a bunch of lines. What does this mean? You know, like, how do you comprehend this, right? Now, I mean, I've, you know, been in this space a while now. I can, you know, figure most of it out, but there's still a lot that I'm like, I don't understand that part. So the cards, you know, came to me after that fact. And so since I had a little bit of astrology, then doing the cards, you know, and now just being able to really tie the two, because that is how my brain works. Like I said, this week, I know there's Venus and Neptune are doing something. I can't remember what, but that kind of makes sense with the Ace of Clubs sitting in Venus, Neptune in the pure spread. I remember last week it was a 6 of Clubs day. And on that day, Mars and Saturn were trining. And in the 6 of Clubs in the pure spread sits Mars, Saturn. So you see how it plays out together. You know what I mean? And so that's my thing, is like really being able to connect all the parts. Like I loved what we were doing in that room, was like taking people's Pluto placements in their natal chart and then putting it like, then looking at the Pluto card and then the reward card with that, because you could see how both energies, you know, played into that space, why they need to be read together, right? Why Pluto and the reward have to be kind of combined to really extract the whole purpose of it. Because Pluto is deep. Like, that's what me and Vante have been really like doing a lot of work with Pluto, and he's been teaching a lot about Pluto, and it's deep. And so it's been really good to kind of peel back those layers and then to connect it within the cards. So yeah, that room was like a marathon room. Like 7 hours of Pluto.
You laid down some good tracks, honey.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Definitely, really, really well done. Yeah, like we didn't do ours because I was like, that vibe is taken over that day. Like, that's just let that be, you know. So it's like that. Yep. Yes, it was.
That's the card for interruptions.
That's what it felt like. I was like, boy, this really came in. It's kind of like you had a show planned and somebody came in and had a show before you. You're like, I guess our show's not going to happen. But I was happy for it to happen. You know, I'm like, that was good stuff. So I really, I think this escapism is really interesting. And there's a couple other things that came in. And there's such like deep dive things, and I'm not going into them that deeply. Like, I think that's a little bit of a variation with me and some of the characters. My intuition does not dive deep. I listen more and I see more in the picture. So in my reflections and what's been happening to me in the last couple of weeks, I signed up for this thing with Carolyn Miss, who I've told you about as a mystic, and it was called The Holy Journey. And it's all about how everything happens in the 3 days. She went into Joseph Campbell and the hero. She went into the process of how we use judgment and how judgment actually sets us up to feel suffering, and that we have to recognize that people will die, things will happen, and that there'll be a process with each thing, but we're actually evolving through that process. She brought in the whole crucifixion and the Last Supper as just like a way that Jesus, the character, was actually teaching us about what it is to be human, to go through trials and to come through and to resurrect, and the value of recognizing your egos and your judgment, kind of the use of discernment, but not necessarily meeting yourself or others with judgment, but more discernment for where it's at this time. So that, with one other last piece of my crazy puzzle, is the suggestion that the two calendars were different, that Diamond brought in on April 1st, that the days might have started on the 7 of spades if things were landed in the way that they were, as opposed to the King of spades, and the different tone it would set for our evolution and why we're here and what we're doing. So those things have my internal systems and my whole form being like, wait a minute. You know, what is it that evolves us now? Is it simply to judge less and to recognize that judgment was a form that we still need in the name of discernment, but to not necessarily use it like a separation thing or a put down or you're less than, like more like right relation? Like I could have twisted up Gina being in that room, and I'm like, the information's growing, everything's happening, life's perfect. Do you know what I mean? But if I could have taken it on in a judgment, or if my ego could have had a different reaction, that would have changed my entire frequency. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, like, that's to me what these co-creation relationships are about. It's because like our circles, like our 3 circles are touching and we have a little spot where we touch, but there's a whole Rashad circle, a whole Gina circle, and all the other ways that we touch circles. So like every time we can let everything radiate naturally and go where it goes, we're in a higher frequency. But when we use judgment to tell somebody where they should be or how they should be or if they should be, that really limits a person's idea of themselves. And the way this came in is through a Montessori teacher who got observed. And when she was being observed by her, you know, supervisors, they gave her feedback. And then the feedback was when she would say to the little kid, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. And they're like, no, we don't say that's good. Just say what happened. Don't say if it's good or bad. Just say it's good. Or the little kid gets hurt and it's like, oh, you're okay. You're okay. Like, no, go and say, I'm here. I'm here. Like, you know, be present. You know, so like there was a way that when we were just those things of being like, okay, like we weren't necessarily being met with just reflection for what was happening. We were saying if it was good or bad, and we were going up and down with the good or bad. Right. So taking that kind of language out, or at least being wise about our language in regards to how we're prisoning each other in this idea of approval, because I was like, that's where we can get really stuck, is thinking we hurt somebody. How many times have you been upset with somebody or thought they were upset with you and knew you should call them, but didn't call them for like a really long time?
I mean, I'm a fixed card.
Like my entire life.
Really long time.
I mean, but that's energy, right? That's energy. You know what I mean? Like,
or being stuck in your head, you know.
That part too. I'm stubborn
and so
as
she
hell.
was just saying that that's what the resurrection is. It's her guy, Robert, that she did the class with, Carolyn Miss. He said the crucifixion is to die to the idea of your human self and to be born as a spiritual being. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa. So anyways, I know it's all common fare in a certain level, but for some reason in my little game that I'm doing with this Easter and this idea of rebirthing, who goes? So rebirthing, I'm really conscious of my ego because I recognize that I have judgments about myself that are limiting my full expression. So my ego's working against my full expression. So my idea of how I need to be or how it needs to be slow grows me instead of full grows me.
It sounded like the 9 of spades, Queen of hearts, Ace of clubs. As far as first, all the court cards are like can be associated to ego and personality. I think whenever you're looking at those particular cards, and then also the rebirthing process of letting go within the sacrifice and gaining, I think, more understanding of things just happen. I think that's a huge part that Gina then was talking about, like in that Pluto room, was letting certain things go, or this idea of who he's supposed to be, or what things supposed to look like. I think, especially we were talking about Gina's the Pluto in the 7th, I think it was, of letting things go and not having control, and not being a victim of your relationships, or
Pluto in the 7th gets dragged, yo. It's a lot of dragging for that. My God.
But it sounds like the King of Spades. But no, when I look at it, Clue, I look at like the King of Spades, like looking at the 7 of hearts in Pluto, and like looking at what that looks like. So like that's what I was getting to was like these huge like character cards. I think there is a balance, a personal or just a significant balance of character or who you want to be, your higher self, or holding yourself to a higher standard, like the nine of clubs, nine of spades, of having high expectations of people and things. And so when you looking at the nines clubs and the nine of spades, you have those personal emotional attachments to things, like even the Pluto in itself is an emotional attachment or something that you can't let go sometimes, some things that can leave you stuck on the way you think things should be, or a personal desire or something. And I think we have perspectives and we have personal goals. I think how we relationships and wanting love, like that's a hard thing not to want, like the hearts and the nine of clubs, nine of spades, to want emotional attachment and love. Like you have the two of hearts and Venus and Mercury. Is like, how can you not? Because you create these relationships. It's like a physiological and biological thing, even down to like I look at the cards like what if things wasn't on a certain day, because it's all a build up. I think the cards in itself is a pattern. It's an everlasting pattern. So it's like counting, like if you look at the human design, it has like your creation date, So it's like it's a build up. Like if it starts from that day, the energy started from another day, based upon the actions before that was created. I was talking to somebody and it was like, you look at the whole week. I was like, yeah, because things could tie into like,
you have a transformation card. How do you think you get to that? Like you just think that the energy just stops after the day. That I heard that too. I was like, no, that's not how that works, because I do a lot of weekly readings, and you see like, and I have reviews with people too, and they're like, oh, that didn't it happened on this day, but it wasn't that card till that day. I'm like, it builds. It's a build up. It carries over. It's part of. It's a transit, right? What it is it's a transit. Things move, like especially if you're looking at outer planet transits, they move super slow, right? So it builds, even though and then it conjuncts and then it goes away. So there's still on the outer the leaving part. The breaking away part is still building and carrying over into that whole week. Even a 7 week, you see it build into that spread, because there's still a result card, a transformation card, and all of that plays a part. All of those daily or weekly energies build to that place. So yeah.
Yeah, so, but everything is a buildup, of expectations, and I think even with if you look at just, I don't know, sometimes I look at psychic abilities and those things as like, would that had happened if that vision, if you didn't have the vision, or is that inevitable? Like, can you change things that happen? So I think we all have these visions and expectations and these emotional attachments to things, and it's to grow our character, because it's the nines, the king of hearts, all those things are character cards. They're growing within their character of who they want to be, and looking at their higher self. So I think going through just our human experience, there's a separation and understanding of who your higher self is and who you want to be, and also holding everything and everyone else accountable to a certain extent, because there's like this revelation, this connection to God that you have to like, okay, my emotional attachment to Pop-Tarts may not be real. It may be a little bit delusional.
But it's a childhood wound that you're unaware of.
Yeah, but the thing is, but it's growing you.
You're only fed Pop-Tarts, and now you can't escape your Pop-Tarts.
But like it totally grows you into who you need to be. I find that all the time, especially being around my mom these days. Like, this is the way that I kind of had it in my head it had to be. She reminds me that there was a way that I put certain pressure on me. It wasn't even coming from outside of me. It was me being like, let's go, we got work to do. Like, don't be getting caught up in that silliness. And if that's garbage, you make sure you say something and you get yourself over there. And it wasn't my mother. She'd be in there, or but she would be telling me not to. And I wanted to listen, but I also didn't like how it felt to be in the mix of drama. I've never appreciated high drama and gossip and stuff like that. Dancing, full force, energy everywhere, laughing till I can't stop, crying, telling stories. Yes. Drama, gossip, interplay, people. Oh my God, get me the fuck out of there. I got nothing. I find that so toxic.
People, they get stuck in those patterns and those cycles, and until it's one thing, everybody's experienced probably some form of trauma, pain, disappointment, whatever. But my whole thing is, and what I've learned with really diving deep into the astrology aspect is, yes, it happened, but it doesn't have to continuously happen. I don't have to take it with me. I don't have to wear it, because probably it ain't my shit to even be wearing,
Yeah.
And
And that's the indulging in it. That's the ego indulging in it, like coveting it. Like, this happened to me. I used to tell people in the hospital, it's like you're romancing your shit. Like, you're taking it to bed with you. Like, I lived through this. I'll never forget this one lady saying to me. She says, well, I'm still struggling with my son's death. And I just started at the freaking place. I said, oh, wow. So how long ago did your son die? And she's like, 11 years ago next week. And I was like, 11 years ago? And she was just like, I said, oh, wow, that must be really hard. I mean, to have children, So I'm trying to figure what to do. And I guess I moved in the group. And then when the group was over, she comes up to me. She says, I hope you weren't trying to rush my grief, Madeline, and weren't honoring my process. And I was like, I went and talked to my dad, my supervisor at the time. And I came back to her later on and I said, my intention is only to liberate you from the things that you might have gotten obsessed with or got romantically entangled with. Because I lost a son when I was 18 years old. And if I stayed in that story, I wouldn't be able to get up in the fucking morning. So I don't know why you're doing that. And I had come to that job to help the people leave the hospital because they had been there for 10 years, having the same stuff. So that was my job at that particular job. And I did it with rapport and with nice, how I'll say it. I wasn't trying to be, I was just seriously, how long do you want to be there? And I noticed with mental illness, it has a lot of that perseverating, this story being stuck in the past or holding it, and almost a sense of definition from it. What am I when I'm not that? And I feel that's what this crucifixion idea is. Who am I when I'm not that story, when I'm not wearing those things on top of me, as if, even sharing the stories about what used to happen to me, like you, Gina, working the bars, I had all the stories. I don't always tell them the same way. And when I do, I don't feel good. And I think that's why my voice comes through weird. And people think that I'm what's with her? Because I don't want to speak those stories anymore. But I got them and they are funny and I had good shtick with it. But it vibrates in me in a way that I don't want to be vibrating. Do you know what I mean? Because it always ends up suggesting somebody's fucked up. And I don't really think anybody's fucked up. I think it's funny.
You say you think it's funny?
I think it's so funny. I think it's just cartoon characters. And just oh, really? You had that crazy kind of cartoon character? I was this kind. I'm really not like that. Even when people have the hardest thing, I'm you got to get through that first part where it hurts a lot, but then you got to grow yourself to where you see it as it's just part of what happened, and you grow to the next Kachina doll. Because if you stay stuck in some story in the little Kachina doll or the middle Kachina doll, your whole shit's fucked up. You got to keep it going with you. These are not endings. These are rebirths. You got to recreate your character. Like you do your video games with anything like that. And you're going to have certain aspects, but let it be different. It's kind of fun to be different.
Yeah, and in understanding, I think we kind of started out with the 10 of clubs when we first started. This was based on the question of why does the 10 of clubs tell the same story, or that you kind of work.
Oh, right. That's how you and I started together in the first place. When I asked you to come work with me, I had 6 or 7 10s of clubs, and they were just looping.
And as far as the essence of storytelling, letting things go in process of character building, I look at that the 9, the queens, kings, of that a rebirthing process and understanding and letting things go. That things happen, and there's going to be rebirthing in the process of life, of like we said, like it's a natural cycle, a natural buildup of like you. There's gonna be a natural ending. There's death is inevitable. You know, the nine of spades and the ace of spades, and that's one thing we were talking about through what y'all was talking about on Clubhouse as well, was the going into like that deep Neptune, like that Queen of Hearts, you know, Neptune area of your life, and all the space life path is mostly through Neptune, or their life path is, because the first two starts in Uranus, and Uranus with the ace of spades and the two of spades in the spiritual spread, that is, you know. So there's always these questions. I think also this fear that naturally happens as well sometimes around life and people, you know. So first I look at animals, you know, they, and like how they react to death, you know, how they react to life, and understanding these things is like, do animal have cards too? Like, do they have a natural process of
I
living?
know, right?
and trying to gain understanding of the world, because like the nines and the nine of clubs is like universal understanding, right? And you have your Queen of Hearts and the queens there, and these emotional attachments. So it's like, so it's so funny. It's like we put here to understand life. It's like
And to
all
live
this we
it, to
don't.
experience it.
Yeah, to live it and experience it, and to like understand this connection to yourself and your higher self and to God. You know, so I think that's what it all is, and that's why we here. I think a lot of times people that study these things is like, why do people do the things they do?
That's so true. Like
That's
yesterday.
why I studied serial killers. I was like, why do they?
Oh no, Gina, don't get it out of your head. Get it out of here. No.
I love it. I love the. It's just the.
It's the way it all works. You like Crazy Town. You like the wirings of Crazy Town.
I do well with crazy.
I see it. You have it. You're like a bridge builder. You're like right in there. You're like, I'm with them. Don't worry, but I'm with them. I'm over here.
I fit in with crazy, and I fit in with not so crazy. I can swing to both sides of crazy.
Heart is coming at the end of the year. I think I'm not gonna say all hearts are crazy, but it's like this. There's extremes with it.
I was obsessed. I really was. I think my parents, I thought I was like, this girl needs some help. Like she got all these. I mean, like I knew all of them. I dove so deep into them.
But think about what those people do. They're obsessive thinking. They really get attached to certain ideas, and they build entire characters and fantasy worlds, fragmented worlds that they think are their own. Like, you know, this is where I did a lot of work with the mental health people. Like that's where a lot of my years were. And I got almost sane-ish there. But yesterday when I left the dog home, and we don't like to leave her alone. She's older, yada, yada. We got all this story shit with it, right? And so I'm driving home and I'm starting in with myself. Oh, you know, I hope she's okay. Oh, I hope, what if something happened? And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like I literally was just like, shut up. That's not real. Like drive the car and get a good song on, you know? And I just started like getting back into my flow. I came home and she did the normal hit, but she wasn't all stressed out. And she got outside and she shook it off. And it was over. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know our shake might take a little longer. Maybe it's every day for 10 minutes for a month or so. But like to literally shake off what we wear that we don't even know we're wearing. Like I've been recognizing how I must be wearing people just because I do this all day, right? So I'm like, I really do have to shake more. Because like I don't want to even let those stupid thoughts come up in my head. So if I'm here while we're talking, don't mind me. No, I'm just kidding. I'll be the shaky puppet.
Why do you think I like to hit this? You know, but you know how on Facebook your memories come up. One of my memories. This is like 12 years ago when I used to live in Atlanta. I posted this and it said, I really love sparring, especially when we get to kick. It's kind of scary how much I like to kick people. And I used to like to, I loved to fight. I loved that physicality of just fighting, like boxing and being able to hit it. That was my shake. It was like getting it out, you know, and I would grapple. I mean, I was intense, and I realized how I have a very intense energy. But it was a way for me to kind of get out a lot of the things that may have been in me, you know, and it felt great. Like, and I really did enjoy kicking and hitting people like too much. Probably
I enjoy getting into people and getting them to laugh and love themselves. That's my form of sparring.
Yeah.
Like my wife always says, she goes, "You're like an emotional intimacy whore, honey." I'm
I
an
say,
emotional
But you push
I
intimacy
say
you a
whore.
beat it out
cancer.
of you. Beat it out of us. Get it out.
But you're a Cancer though, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you have the
Yeah.
King of Hearts, and some people call that your planetary ruler. But but you definitely have the aspects. And what's in your regular moon is the Ace of Hearts. So so there's still those emotional, the protection, the fun, the laughter. I'm gonna say
Mhm.
for Gina, she also has. I think hearts are great
Savage.
protector. You know,
Gina,
they
you're
find them.
building a
You
character.
said
I'm starting to
savage.
get
I know,
scared of
right?
you. You
She
want me
said
to be
savage.
scared of you,
She's
Gina?
so intelligent with we're savages.
I ain't gonna lie. That's why I like to hit things. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, right. The Jack of Clubs. That is needed to have a positive way of release. Yeah, and especially Kingdom Hearts, it's the nines connected. Those are athletes as well,
Mm-hmm.
or like boxers and
Mhm.
artists. So there's this. We have to find this way to release and not let things get attached to our characters, and we get
Mhm.
attached to certain things or mentalities. Queen of Hearts is Neptune, right? And I always say the Ace of Clubs needs some escapism. Sometimes they usually
Mm-hmm.
because they're high. It's like a high intensity type of energy and feeling. I think emotional attachment, and like you said, they go through Venus. Neptune is already exalted, and with that position, so
Mm-hmm.
they may need to escape. Right.
I think it's
Right.
just keeping them where they can be somewhat not have learned helplessness, like be able to take care of things themselves. Like, because I think escapism is going to always be part of like, what else is there? I wonder what happens when you do this. Like that's always going to be part of the exploration of the characters that we're living in. But when you create a shared projection with somebody, so somebody says, this bad thing happened to me, so I'm never gonna be able to tie my shoes again. So for the rest of my life, you have to tie my shoes because this bad thing happened to me. And then after a while, you're like, okay, I'll help you tie shoes. And you're like, come on, I think you can learn to tie your fucking shoes. You sure you don't want to tie shoes? No, I'll never tie my shoes again. No, you got to always tie my shoes forever now because you saved me. You got to always tie my shoes. Yeah, what if we get the Velcro kind? Because I think you could just get your shoes on and off. I think it'd be okay if I didn't do your shoes anymore. Oh, no, I need you there. So like that becomes like this like life bomb, like it's like a goo that keeps people together because you feel so bad saying, oh, that really horrible thing happened to Joe, so I've got to do that. But you're not living your yes. You're not standing where you go because you're trying to make sure everything's okay with Joe. So that's that in disentanglement with this moon and this energy. To me, that's the letting go of the human attachments of the ways that you thought you had to be to show up for anybody.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes to the seventh, that Pluto in the seventh is being like when we were in the room that day, it's almost like it actually let me kind of remind me of my grandparents, my nana and my papa, because my papa was sick. We had Parkinson's and my nana ran around taking care of him, right? Ignored a cough that she had, ended up with lung cancer, and within 6 months was gone. And he lived another 5 years. You know what I mean? So there's that like wanting to, save somebody or, be more, and, she was a lively lady. Like she was healthier than most of us at the time, but that there was a cough that she just, I guess, didn't really pay attention to. And, but
And the
yeah, so,
emotions.
huh?
No, I'm gonna say there's an emotional attachment that happens inside of you.
Yeah, and you want to obviously help, and I get that, and it's kind of like what we were talking about too, like when you're on a plane, right, and turbulence happens and the oxygen mask drop. They say put the mask on yourself first, but you can't be running around here. You need a mask here. You need a mask now. You die because you have no oxygen, and so it's that, and here's the thing. What I think is we're not raised or taught to take care of yourself first. It's always about give to this person. You got to share. You got to be nice. You got to be this. You got to be that. You got to go play.
You got to serve. You got to serve. It's like
Right.
by serving, to me, serve is like create your best self and take good care of it. That's how you serve the forest. When you have a certain kind of energy and healthiness in you, you make the whole forest healthy, just like you make a community healthy when you're healthy.
Yeah. Like I'm big on, like, you know, I have a good amount of clients that I do these weekly recordings for. And if I've only had a few times where I've had to reach out to people and be like, look, I'm not, like when I was having the dizzy stuff, or like I was dealing with some stuff, they're like, no, get like, and there's a part of me, it's like, it's due today. Like there's that, like, I got to get it done, but I had to take care of me. And how can I serve you and give you this information and be at my best if I'm over here like spinning because I'm dealing with dizziness, right? So I had to have boundaries and be like, hey, you know, this is what's happening. And the response was, no, please, whenever you get better, we're good, you know. So you have to be aware of and that's, I think, another thing too, we're not taught to be self-aware of our own, you know, just like you said, when someone gets hurt, oh, no, you're fine. No, that hurt. Acknowledge that it hurt, but you don't have to stay in the hurt. But if we tell somebody, no, that you're telling them it didn't happen, it's not real. So when a real thing hurts, you're like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not sure how to, you know, react to this. So I think we have to be aware. Like my daughter, last night, my younger one came, I'm doing dishes, and I turn and she's crying. I'm like, what happened? And she's so traumatically upset over missing these little squishy thingy majiggies. And then rather me be like, oh, it's fine. You know, don't worry about it. I'll stop doing my dishes. And I said, let's go look for them. Yeah, Mama, it's so important to me. It's so important to me. So I recognized how important this was to her. And we tore her room apart looking for these things. We found a few. She's still sad, you know. So, but I even in this was something I recognized, because old me would have been like, oh, just go, you know, I got to do the dishes. Like I got to clean up the kitchen. And instead I stopped because I could see it in her. I mean, I could just see the in her. And so I'm glad that I was aware to stop what I was doing and say, I understand you're sad. I understand you're sad, but let's look for this stuff and try to, you know, don't stay stuck on this sadness and, oh, we can't find them. Let's look for it, you know? So kind of redirecting that energy, but allowing her to be like, oh, rather than be like, that's nothing to be crying about, or, you know what I mean? Like that, why would you be, it's just a little squishy, sticky toy. Who cares? But for her, she cares, you know? So recognizing that for her and being like, okay, like I literally left the dishes in the sink and we went right to her room and we started tearing it apart and trying to find what she was looking for. But you know, and I've been big about that with her is, you know, because she is the Ace of Clubs. And so allowing her to, like, when she is sad, instead of saying, no, that's not, don't cry about that. No, I understand that you feel that way, you know, and it's okay, but we're not going to stay there very long. You know, we're going to try to see, you know, how can we move past this, shake it off, if you will.
It moves through. It really does move through. It's like going to the bathroom emotions. They will move through us. It's what we do with them and how we weave them and what kind of power we project from them. Very interesting. Yo, I got to tell you the stuff I wanted to tell you, so I'm excited because I was like, oh, I have to tell them these things I've been thinking. So for some reason, that's kind of what I enjoy about talking with the two of you, is like hearing what you're thinking and sharing and trusting that it goes to good places.
No, yeah, it all relates. It's a close week and it's a semi-fixed card. And when you think about those attributes and those things as well, it's like I say, it's the emotional attachments to people. They have a 9 of spades, 9 of clubs, and moon, so they go through these death and rebirths. It's every week probably, right? Because it's like they have their fixed karma, like we all jump around, you know. But
we should have had Nick on today. This was a perfect Nick show,
right? Yeah, I didn't even. It's a close week, right? Yeah. So, and then also looking at the King of Spades, it's a fixed card, and it has the 7 of Hearts and Pluto. You know, so like the sevens, you were talking about, like saving yourself. You know, not being so attached to other people as well through your process. You know, and when you look at it, has the opposition is the first house, so it's the you know, so it's
Always.
like it always have to reflect back to you, even within relationships. It may not be them. You have to check yourself. What is it coming from childhood? Where are these particular attributes and attachments coming from? So it's all of these emotional attachments. Especially. That's a fixed card, and have the 7 of Hearts side. I look at those cards and like, where are these other cards aligned to them? Because that's going to tell a large part of the story that's related to that card. It's based on the placements of the other cards around it. So, like the Jack of Hearts, you have a 2 of Diamonds in Pluto. He's the sacrificing.
And Clubhouse is a 2 of Diamonds.
Yeah, so it's, I think I was looking at, I was like, that the other day, the relationship to the 2 of Diamonds and the Jack of Hearts, and the importance of like partnerships and what's it? Kru was talking about the 7 of Hearts and relationships. I think I'm trying to think about exactly what she was saying. She was just talking about the desire for us, like relationship, having let things go, not be attached, and emotional control. And then
go ahead.
No, go ahead. And then
well, one thing too that Vante had said, which is really like eye-opening for people who have any kind of 2 in Pluto or 7th house Libra, those more difficult Pluto placements that are always dealing with others, is he put it back. He's like, remember, someone has to deal with your shit too. It's not just you dealing with them. They deal with you too. And so I think when you have a 2 there, or you have that partnering, you're always so like, you forget that, well, yeah, like that just made me think of it like, wow, I never thought of it like that. So because we become so, obsessed or possessive of the other sometimes, that we forget that they have to deal with us, and we are a whole, lot to deal with too. So that was pretty another way to see it, or to have that door open to like dig down that path of, and back to like the 7s, they're inside out jobs. You know what I mean? And when we do put on these expectations, or we have these, like, a lot of times projections, fantasies, idealism of how this should be, or how we would want it to be, but then it's not. And then we're like, oh, but really you created this fantasy or projection of what you thought you wanted. And that's, so the person is showing up as they are, but you're like, no.
That's how we live life. I think that's the beauty of the inevitability of life, because even with life, you grow up, well, some people don't, but you grow up having dreams. Like, you create these dreams and expectations of your life. And then at one point, it either happens or it doesn't. Like, was that a fantasy? Was that a vision that you had? Like, so it's like this world, where's the split between reality and then also like what's
I would love to just say to the 7 of Diamonds thing before I have to go to my session. Being married to a 7 of Diamonds, the father of the older boys, and understanding, having that dream and reality and the passion that goes behind it as a character as well. I'll say what I think it has to do with is being able to accept that inside out job that you speak of, Gina, and being able to come to a place in yourself that you can trust yourself, and everything doesn't have to be perfect for you to be okay.
Right. That's key.
That's the secret formula, right?
Allowing it to be what it is,
like,
right?
As long as you know that you can do you wherever you got to go, and you got you, and then you need to accept life on life's terms, because if it's not the way you want it and you get yourself all, that's fucking annoying as shit. Like,
but if it's not the way you want it, then you have to, like, that's the
inside out.
It's the inside out,
Yeah, it's like, accept it and see what is there, because you're missing something, because you're getting, like, I said it was supposed to be blue.
My whole world is that nigga. It's not blue.
All right, where are you gonna go from here?
And that's when you get stuck. But see, that goes why the 7s and the 9s go together, because you can't get stuck in that tunnel of it being blue. You have to see, maybe it was supposed to be red and you missed the whole, you could have had something even better, because you were so stuck on the blue, you missed the red.
all
Right.
the queens have sevens in their spiritual spread.
Yeah. And that's true. As women, I know my projection onto people's potential. I mean, that's definitely been a game, so, but this is a good one. I wish I didn't have to go. All right. But I have a
No,
10.
no, we're
Okay.
right at that point anyway. So
Yep.
I appreciate the conversation. It was all within the cards. So it's definitely a exciting week. Ace of Clubs, a lot of questions and figuring things out. So I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did. So anything that you want to say, Gina, or in closing?
No, this was good. This has been fun. I felt like, that Ace of Clubs energy was definitely there on Tuesday in that room on Clubhouse. And we could have gone 7 more hours. Like, it doesn't, everyone's like, how y'all feeling? I'm like, I'm good. Like, I didn't feel like I sat here for 7 hours talking about cards. It flows. And that's one thing I like with Vontae and I, it flows. We literally build right off of each other. It's a really good, that 9 of clubs. It's pretty powerful there. So it's been fun, and we'll probably do more rooms and builds with that, because I really do think I really love it, because it's done world of wonder for me, is to really unpack that Pluto placement. It's one thing to know I have a 2 there, but it's really one thing to know, like, to really dig deep into that, and so that relationships to come won't be disastrous.
I look at aspects in astrology sometimes. Not just, I think the cards sometimes are like that too, but like, just because I start out in astrology, you look at it like, oh gosh, what is this? What did God put into my life at this particular time? Because the 7th house aspects, if you're into relationships or heart, that is definitely something that you want to look at, because it will tell you everything you need to know about your relationships and your expectations, possibly, marriage and all of those things, especially like in the Vedic. I have this particular placement where all my planets is to one side of the chart. As well, I don't know, but so, and then also there's my north node and south node is like in the 1st and 7th house. So there's
Same, Rashad.
Yeah.
I actually just recently had a Vedic reading, so I'm learning. I think it's fascinating. So I think we have some similar placements. We'll have to talk.
Yeah. It's the relationships it definitely affect your relationships. The aspect of you getting into a relationship, there's a separation, that happens with that particular placement as well. It can even have long distance relationships as well, or having to travel, or you can't be really comfortable. Like, let's say if I'm in a relationship and your spouse may travel, so it's like there's always like this separation, this distance that can happen as well. So
do you think, but here's something too, let's think about this, if you just like for a few more minutes, because I wonder, like, if you have the same placements, like maybe the relationships have been stalled and delayed because we have to have a better understanding of who we are, because then it can be very, especially having 2s in Pluto, power struggle, that power, that struggle, that, like very much intensity, because we don't actually have a better, like, we don't have self-awareness. We don't have
lose yourself in a relationship.
Right. So I had to look at it as, okay, I needed all of these to happen so that when I can, because I'm really big, like, I don't want trauma and toxicity. Like, that's just not fun. It's really taxing. And I had to go through a lot of these different scenarios to really, really have a better understanding of who I am, so that when I do go get into a relationship, I am more self-aware of me and not so distracted and like, woo, you. And then everything that I've worked on and have built and have done can get lost in the sauce, because you become so focused on that person. I think that's like I think I have like the 7th house Saturn and Rahu, something to that effect. So
that's same. That's crazy.
So it takes
mine's in the 1st house. Yeah, go ahead.
It takes us longer, Saturn time, right? More like responsibility, discipline, patience, to get to, like, it doesn't mean we'll never have a successful relationship, but we've got to do the work on self first, so that we can get into these more, because that's just going to mirror us back anyways. So we haven't done the work. So maybe we went through some shitty relationships to get us. And I'm by no means, I have mad respect. I'm very grateful.
Right, let's not just
Mad respect.
the opposite.
I'm grateful. I've learned so. I'm very grateful. I've learned so much. I got a lot of peace.
You got to come to that point.
You do. You do. You really do. You got to have a lot of forgiveness and grace for yourself, because that's the thing with the cards and astrology. It really makes you look at you. You're like, yeah, man, I did all that dumb shit. So
that's what I said last night. I was like, it was definitely me. I do have to own up to my 2 of hearts and my personal attachments, like to this idea. Like you said, you lose yourself. It's like even in human design, looking at like if you don't have a cycle, you don't have certain placements, the other energy can come in and replace that and take over. So you've been captivated, especially me. I'm a projector, so
same.
So I have to watch the energy, and I have a lot of open spaces. So I have so people, like, I have to be, they say I have to be in like a community where there's like people and help me fulfill those other energy centers. But so I have to kind of be careful, because I can lose myself. Like, I have a 2 in relationships. The diamonds have a Ace of Hearts and Pluto, I think. So, like, they really have to have love for themselves first. Like, you come first within all of this, and like this, like you said, like, it's always a mirror. It's a reflection of what you want or what you looking at to get out of the relationship as well. And if you don't get it, you also have to look at yourself, and did you set yourself up for the okie doke?
Right. And you think the hearts is that like you're really like emotionally attached, and then the diamonds is like you lose, like I've noticed, like you will like devalue yourself if you're not in a relationship, or your relationship can devalue you because you literally put everything into the relationship. And then you add the fact that the Jack of Hearts is a one-eyed Jack, the result card is a one-eyed Jack, so we can, like I said, it's those projections, those fantasies that I really have to operate out of that Virgo energy to really discern and to see it for what it is, not what I want it to be. Like, I can get really lost in that sauce. So I realized that, those placements aren't to, like, I stopped feeling like being punished or whatever. Like, what I needed all that, so that the latter part of my life, I can actually have healthy relationships, because I've done a lot of work for myself. And learning that 7th house placement has been key, absolutely key to understanding. Because when you hear all those things, you're like, God dang, man. So, and it doesn't even have to be 7. If you've got Libra, like how we figured out yours isn't exactly in the 7th house, but it's in Libra, which is the other. So it's funny how that plays out. Like, that was really dope too, like seeing people's cards, even the same card, and how they had different placements, and see how that could all play out. It's fascinating. But yeah, I think us who have these specific placements look at it as, building yourself so that you can, do a lot of work, do a lot of healing, shake all that shit off, and then, proceed into relationships that are going to really, it's not about bringing out the best in you, because you put your best self forward.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you have to let go of thinking, like you said, I'm not this person if I'm not in a relationship,
my value doesn't depreciate.
Yeah. Right.
When before I would get stuck in that, like really, really stuck in that. So I'm grateful that it's taken, I can be like, oh my God, I'm this age, and, things haven't happened yet, but I'm like, shit, if I would have, because I've had relationships, and look, they're, so I can't be mad anymore and be like stuck on that. I really am grateful that I've had to go through a lot of these things so I can get to a better place, and just really knowing who I am, and not, be willing to jump into something out of that, like, because those 2s, that codependency or that fear, or just needing to partner with somebody that you just, forget about all the red flags and just be like, oh, you're pretty, whatever the case may be. So Yeah, I think that's important. So those placements, though, it's a doozy.
Especially like you said, being a projector, like having those open centers and not letting the relationship define you. I think it's tough sometimes, and because
Mm-hmm.
it's a desire. Relationships are a desire. We do want to, or have intimacy and be with other people. So that's why I said it's like um, these things are natural. It's why we all came here to understand and go through these particular things.
Mm-hmm.
To experience someone outside of ourselves. And like you said, making sure you know what it's like you said, there's a certain timing, especially like you said with the Saturn, like a certain, as far as like relationships, it's all timing, until
Mm-hmm.
you know who you are and know what you want and have defined um set boundaries, and not just going after anything because you desire to be in a relationship or something that you have um, let something that shape your character, so you always have to make sure that you haven't let go and let someone, like you said, devalue you, especially
Yep.
like that two of diamonds. Yeah, I have a two of hearts, so not knowing when to let the relationship go.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too, it's like, we, that seventh house, or whatever, the two, that two energy, even seeing people who are twos,
And we
right?
say twos because the twos is relationships, and
Right.
then the first and seventh
Right.
is marriage
Relationship with
or
self and
relationship
relationship with others.
with others. Yeah.
But so it starts with self, right? So if you don't have a relationship with yourself, and it's the whole you love yourself, but it's really about having a relationship with yourself, knowing yourself. And it really even starts with just the conversation you have with yourself. What are the things that you tell yourself? What are the things that you speak over yourself? That those people are going to mirror that.
Mm-hmm.
And so other relationships, if I look really deeply, I could see I wasn't, valuing myself. And I think they're there to teach, like, that's why they show up. It's not like, you being like punished or whatever, how you look at it. It's really to show you where you do have, maybe these holes or these, open spaces that need, filled with you first. Because I feel like if you give someone that much, I call it like the puppet string, where then now they can control you, giving them that power over you, because you've put your, feelings of value onto what they do or don't do, when
Mm.
you have to have that for yourself first, right? It's that being self-aware of who you are, what you want, what you need. But we walk around so like Madeline said, ready to serve other people. How do you serve yourself? So I think anybody who has these, I don't care where it is, twos in your spread, or just anybody, I don't care what cards you are, how do you serve yourself first? Right? I think that is one of the first steps to really understand who you are, what it is that you want, what it is that you desire, then being able to move out into the world. I'm not saying go lock yourself in your room, because you do, like, that's one thing Vontae talked about. You still have to get out and relate to people. That's how you're gonna know, like, when you go and relate to others. And it's just like I said, just being aware of yourself. And if someone comes to you all sideways, because you have self-awareness, you're like, I'm good, I don't need, why would I, because I have self-awareness that you're not the type of person that I want to interact with. And it's not to shade you, it's just we're not at the same space. So I think it's just being aware of self. And I think that's one thing, especially, having kids or just being out in this world, the more teaching your children first, that because you'll save them a lifetime of shit to have to shake off. But just making them aware of their self and what it is that brings them joy, peace, love, fulfillment, and pursuing those things. And if people, show up, they should just add to that, not take away, or then you give everything that you've done because of this need or desire to have somebody. Because how many people are in relationships? You have a physical person there, but you're lonely as shit.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you don't realize it until after the relationship
Right.
As a lot of times, sometimes you lost in the sauce, Queen of Hearts, Neptune, like you have this fantasy, you're in this dreamland about this relationship, you can't let it go, and then, but it's not until after the relationship you haven't really defined what you wanted, or like, was it really what you wanted, or were you comfortable, you know? I look at like that seven, like the seven of hearts, the ace of spades, um, and this emotional control with the eight of hearts that they have. But like you said, whenever you haven't got out of, whenever you're in that relationship, you're not really happy. You
Because
haven't
you're not
set
happy
those
with
proper
yourself.
boundaries.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're not happy with yourself so much that you would like stay with somebody that, is it like, that's the thing, like this is when being aware of yourself and being happy. Like I was I was in a relationship that was like that. It was like we were roommates. There was no, hence I left. I can't do that. That's not how that works for me. So, and that's being aware. I could have easily stayed. It would have been, easier for me with the kids and, but hell no, that seemed harder to do. It seemed harder to have to fake that. Like, because I felt like I wasn't being able to be who I was. I need that intimacy. I need that connection. You can't just sit there and not interact. Like, that's just not going to work with me. So I'm going to drive me crazy. And it did. So, I left because I realized it's not what I want. I could have stayed for, financial reasons or felt like that's when I was starting my business. So I had to go out on a lot of faith that I was going to, kill it. And that and actually birthing my second daughter, the way I wanted to, were some of the probably biggest, like, you can do this shit, what you are capable of doing this, right? Those were some of the biggest things that had happened to me, realizing like my power and what I am capable of doing. And that, yes, it's nice to have others, but they're not always going to be there. They're not actually obligated to even be there in the first place. Right. So you have to be obligated to your damn self first and foremost before you can ever expect anybody to come and, want to participate in your circus.
It's a twist space day.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize it. Thank you, Jimmy. I was like, yeah, today is ruled by Jupiter on a 6 Venus. I'm a Sagittarius born on the 6th also. It's my Neptune card day. It's an ace of spades. Yeah, no, you are, because even we were talking about the seven of hearts and the ace of spades, right? And there's this, they have to have boundaries, they have to know who they, and sometimes the obsessions comes from, there's like this twofold, right? Because there's a definite desire of what you want and what you create around you, which can create your reality. And also there's the death and rebirth and process that it all happens, that it naturally happens, that we have to um, come to of certain desires about love and relationships, making sure we love ourselves first and foremost and set the proper boundaries. And we're not just being, because the ace of spades can be very dreamy as well. You were talking about, it's like one of those cards that making see dead people.
That's what I said. I was like, don't take this the wrong way, but they see dead people.
Yeah, so, but they can definitely have this Neptune type of essence. I think we live in our dreams. That's what the Neptune, the two of spades sits in Neptune, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And I don't think there's anything wrong with dreaming
it's
and
not,
having, having these like whatever.
because
But
you don't know what you want until you know what you want
right.
and got
That's
and
kind of that
experience what you don't want.
Pisces Virgo access, right? When you say it's that Piscean Virgo, like
Six.
real, like tangible or like fantasy, and it's blending the two. It really is. I know this because that's my those are my placements. So that's why I always I live in the clouds. I don't want to be responsible or be an adult. Like
Pisces rising.
yeah, Pisces rising, South Node in Pisces, North Node in Virgo. I'm learning. I'm getting better. Like even I jokingly say just recently, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, I just started making my bed, and I'm like, yes, I feel like an adult. Like I'm accomplished.
So your South Node is in what is your South Node is in Virgo or
Pisces.
which in Pisces? South Node
I'm
in
a Pisces rising. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. So your so I was talking about your South Node is in Pisces and your Pisces rising. Okay, so your North Node is in
Virgo.
Virgo. Oh gosh. Okay. So I see it's like this fight. Oh my gosh, it's like a fight inside of you.
Why do you think I always say I don't want to grow up? I'm a Toys R Us kid because I don't want to do the Virgo shit. Like, it's so tedious. Like, look, I got lists. Like, it's crazy. Like, I try because if I'll go to the store and even the shit that's on the list, I'll miss it. I'm like, damn, I forgot to get that. It's on the list, yo.
like who signed me up for this?
Why would you make it like this? I'm just trying to find the balance of it all. Yo, it's funny because, well, then I birthed an Ace of Spades and she's like, what is wrong with you? Can you get your shit together, please, and raise me? Fantasy land.
So I'm a good diamonds new in this. Yeah, so we're having a card conversation. Welcome to the card table.
Right. And yes, I was born 79.
Yeah. She's trying to figure out your age. You did the trick, Gina. I just watched it on YouTube the other day. It was like, what did she say? She was like, she was like, what's the password to your account? She was like, it's the name of my dog and my age. She was like, really? What's your name? She's like, such and such. Okay. When's your birthday? She was like, I was born June 1st, 1990. Okay, wow. So what do you do? Where you from? Blah, blah, blah. Do you have like a boyfriend? You're in a relationship? And you say you have a dog? She was like, okay, what's your dog name? And she gave me the dog name. It's like, you just gave away your password.
Wow.
So it was like you just gave away your age. You're like, I'm not gonna tell you how old I am.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you were born in 79. Yes, I'm about to go into my. I'll be approaching the spirit spread when my birthday hits. So, getting ready for that.
So you said you
I'll be 44.
Okay. I was looking at like those cycles. It was something that I was looking at. Oh yeah, and Aquarius class the other day was looking at the pattern as far as like going all the way around the table.
Mm-hmm.
And why it's 45 because you go into every space and then you reset at the 44. And then also in the next cycle, there are, I want to say there are certain differences, but there's the two diamonds in a certain place. There are subtle differences that you may see.
The semi-fixed cards change.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's like these. So, and like I said, those fixed cards I think those are really important character builders, in our process.
You don't say.
Experiences.
I make my bed now, Rashad.
I need to grow up, right?
I did. I think I'll be all right when I get that spirit spread. I'm responsible now. I take lists to the grocery store, but I still forget the shit. That's all.
List to the Virgo. I'll take list to the grocery. I need to take a list to the grocery store. I need responsibility to Virgo. Food and health is like I really need to take the responsibility of the actions, daily tasks that I commit to myself in life and making sure that I make my bed. Like, I'm taking a list to the grocery store. Like. We're learning, like, this is things I'm supposed to do. This is
right.
what I'm headed in life.
It's crazy. I swear. It is like staying, and I think too, becoming an entrepreneur really, had to grow me up because you're responsible for something. You know what I mean? Like you really are responsible for and it's how I fed my kids for 8 years now. So that was like a real grow up, because I've always worked in the, restaurant industry, hospitality industry. Always knew at least I'd have, money coming in. When you have a business, it's like, it's a roller coaster ride with no seatbelt. So You never know. And so having to stay diligent, having to stay, and I struggle. I'm not going to lie. It is a very hard axis to work off of, from that Piscean energy into that Virgo energy, because I can get very distracted. I can be very procrastinated. A whole day will go by and I'm like, I didn't do a damn thing. Like, how is that even possible? And I lose track of time. I lose track of shit. I'll be out like, oh my God, I can't talk on the phone and go out the door because I be forgetting shit. It's amazing. My kids have, I can't grow anything because I forget to water it.
You're going into the dark. That Neptune is like, just throw me into the dark.
Yes. Let me swim in the abyss. It's fun there. It's where you can just float and nobody, it's funny though. When I go to the beach, I do that. I lay in the ocean and I just float. I feel at peace there.
The other day I had a Queen of Spades. I was given a reading. I did do a weekly for someone, and I thought it was very interesting because the weeklies is a little different because it's like what could happen, like what possibly could happen within the week of someone. So it's like a lot of different. So you want to go through. You don't want to like overdo it because like the cards have so many different variables and possibilities to be honest. So sometimes it's like. It's like a surprise for me and you, like, because it's like, oh, I missed that, even like in Clubhouse or in the rooms or on here, sometimes you go back and like, or on Instagram, it's like sometimes you can't get caught up into every single thing because you do miss things because I told someone like you only have a certain amount of characters, like I can't come over here and write a book. I'm sorry. Like, so you're definitely gonna miss things. So it's like sometimes it's like, oh wow, that's crazy. That's dope. So I was doing a reading for someone, and they had the Queen of Spades and Neptune, and it was like I woke up and I was like, I have to go to the beach today. Like I don't know what it is, but like I want to do this reading at the beach for some reason. And I get to the beach and I look at their spread and like they have the Queen of Spades and Neptune. I was like, wow, okay, wow, because it's like the Queen of Spades is like the working woman or as well, So it's like I'm going to work, traveling Neptune to the beach to work. So it's like, wow, that was like really interesting.
And you probably gave an amazing like that, because you remember the Queen of Spades is that spiritual self-mastery. So you trusted that internal thing that said, I want to go to the beach. Right. And now, and that's that like not just ignoring that, and going there and doing it. That's trusting. I feel like that's one of the biggest things of like really trusting that intuition, that internal. Yeah. And now being able to give healing, if you will, from a distance, where you're much more in a state of space where you feel like you're able to even really tap in, because that is that Queen of Space. She heals without even like putting hands on you.
From a distance, yeah. And up to having an emotional connection, semi-empathetic, because the Queen of Spades can be the iron fist, but still. And you look at, and that makes me even look at there's Ian the investor. He's a Queen of Diamonds, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
I believe.
I'm not surprised he's a diamond. I thought he was. I don't know why I thought he was a different card, but
let me look it up. I'm pretty sure. I believe. I don't want to get that wrong because it's crazy. He did leave a comment on my page, and I did tell him he's a Queen of Diamonds. So.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised because of what he does. What he's doing.
So hopefully, I didn't give him the wrong birthday. I wonder, like, sometimes is like, is it spooky for like people to be able to look you up? It's like, people say like somebody give you your charts. They have like I was going to do that last week, right? And it was like going to tell you everything. And it was like you was like, no, don't do that. You want to show you like you're naked. Now I was watching KRS Astrology this week, and he said the same thing. He was like, he apologized to someone. He was like, I'm so sorry for like giving your charts up and using you as an example. Because it's like you're stripping someone naked to the world. And that can be possibly true. And it's very interesting and strange as well that a lot of these things haven't been adopted into like really like, I wouldn't, it is because a lot of like your psychologists, majors like psychologists, let me try to think of Right.
You're breaking up, Rashad.
Sigmund Freud
There you go.
and I think like their biography, they were into astrology also. So there's a correlation. I think it is like you can really dive into someone's psychological complexes as we do every morning, I guess, and use
I mean,
ourselves
I
as
was a
a compass.
psychology major. I was a psychology major when I went to when I showed up at school.
Oh wow, I am going back for psychology.
I never really. I just kind of. I was there, but I really wasn't there. I have a way. It's funny because like that 9 of clubs, I just take it in. I don't even have to read I just, and I would drive people crazy because I just take it in. Like I absorb the information. But what you said, what, say it again?
I can't find his birthday. You say, what I said, what?
No, you were saying about how, I can't remember now. See, this is,
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
You said you was a psychology major.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I studied psychology. Remember, like I like serial killers. So
oh yeah,
I had to know why. And then it went from them from the adults. I left studying the adults and I went into child behavioral science because I realized that, that environment, that home and early environment. Yeah, that was my jam.
Yeah, I'm into behavioral science. That's what I'm. Yeah. So
why do you do this? Like, why do you do these things? Like, that's what I wanted. That's my let's figure this out. But I think too, one of the best things to try to, well, here's that, right? Here's that too in Pluto. I'm trying to figure everybody else out when I wasn't even trying to figure myself out.
the two in Pluto.
Yep.
That has been, especially the Ace of Hearts, Ace of Clubs with 2 of Hearts, Ace of Clubs. That's the thing. I think, like I said, that we have these, like, how can you tell the Virgo to not be going into like health fields and not work on people, but then also have to understand the isolation. That's one thing I was going to say earlier, the 7 of Hearts, they also have to have isolation, takes time to yourself, a sense of privacy, right? Ace of Spades, like not letting everyone in your business, detaching yourself from everyone. Even the 7s is like the drunken seller as well, So even within relationships, 1st house, 7th house, we all have those axes, right? So it's like, where and how do you find that balance within yourself and within your own relationships,
Yep.
And the 1st and 7th can be a clue within your relationships, how you find that balance and create boundaries and making sure that you're aiding to yourself and have that self-love. Like, where am I getting lost at within the relationship or within these desires, north node, south node, or my sense of comfort that I've created, or expectations, and maybe I need to step out of my comfort zone and do something different, maybe opposition of where I want to be or where I'm comfortable at, within that and within those energies. So definitely that 7 hearts and 7th house, and the Ace of Spades, and finding privacy and that self-love is within those axes and cards as well. And the behavioral science aspect, I see that's the 9 of clubs. I was texting you, Devante was saying something about why he does what he do, or before he said it. And that's the thing, like you said, following your intuition. I'm finding that a lot. I don't know if it's my diet, but it's like I see or say things before it maybe even said or seen. And it's like really weird. Even in Aquarius classes, it's like I'm saying stuff to myself before she even says it within the cards. I'm like, have I been card programmed?
No, Rashad, and it's going to happen more and more because it happens when Vontae's talking about astrology, and he's talking about astrology, and I'm literally I'm not speaking, but I'm speaking to myself, and I'm going to say this, and then he goes and says it. I'm going to add this, and then he adds that. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. You don't hear me? It's like, did you hear me telepathically what I was saying? You're saying the same shit. We're not in the same space, obviously. We're probably on different sides of this country right now. But yeah, when he was speaking, I was the same shit I was thinking.
That Queen of Spades and Neptune we were talking about, right? Being able to connect. And he has the Queen of Hearts as a challenge, those queens connecting. Because even the 7 of Hearts, the Ace of Spades, like, they are very telepathic, very
Yep.
Like that's why you have to create boundaries. It is an emotional sensory overload,
Mhm.
and you can be very empathetic and wanting to help and give and sacrifice for people, but you have to create boundaries.
And with Aquarius too, though, because her being a 4 of clubs, when that's your transformation
That's
card.
my
So
transformation card.
when she's speaking it, you're able to kind of like
See,
exactly.
see it from a
She
full
breaks it.
perspective.
She just breaks that down to a foundational way. You're like, I get that shit.
Right. Like, and it's like she's speaking my language,
Right.
because
Right.
it's like I'm
Right.
transforming into her. So it's like
Right.
what I'm growing into,
That understanding that like you're having, it's like your mind is coming at peace, right,
Mhm.
and getting clear with the understanding of the energy, to where now when you go, you are able to speak it clearly and make it now, because that's one thing about that 4 of clubs is how they can teach that information and really
So
get it to where it's solid, because it's a solid energy. So they're really good at and they're good at connecting the dots with it
building.
too, right? So I think that's one of the most beneficial energies when you're trying to really comprehend something, because you see it in its equal, like in step by step by step by step,
How
right?
everything's playing out and
Mm-hmm.
mapping out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're building something from a foundation. I was like, it's like the 4 spades. I'd say they can be good in real estate. Like if you get one that's really hungry, it's like these energies really do play out. It's so weird, to see how can a 4 go into real estate? How does that even relate? Then you have cancer, the home, it's like ancestors, like having property attachments, this the space I always see as like the connection between the physical and spiritual self, so it's like this connection of protection and providing for your home, so it's like how can, and then the clubs, like you building a program, like you building information and knowledge and being able to dispense it to other people for them to regurgitate and understand,
Mm-hmm.
like this natural teacher and builder. And then you go into her coding, so it's like how she's a coder, the 4 clubs, the 8 of clubs, like, and the 5 of hearts. So it's like, yeah, she like all of these things is like how she speaks and how she attached it to things, and it's like that makes sense, like
Mm-hmm.
like because they're gonna crush it all down to a sense of to a foundation and build it back
Mm-hmm.
up to what
Like
everything
the root.
is.
I look
Yeah.
at it like the root, and it gives you the root, and now you grow your limbs from there, right?
Hmm.
You then take that root, that foundation of information, you allow your own life experiences to teach you these cards, to teach you the elements, how it shows up for you. She's going to give you the base. But when you go out that door and you go live life, a 9 of diamonds can show up to me different than it's going to show up for you.
Hmm.
And that's another layer to add on to how that 9 of diamonds can play out. Yeah, but you
Hmm.
have a foundation, you have a
Foundation.
root, you have some kind of like base. Now you have to, spread your limbs or whatever trees do. Grow.
No, she's very good at as far as making the connections and the light spread for the people and the actions, and like, yeah, of course they would do that, like the
Mm-hmm.
like, of course the 7 of spades will have head, or the 9 of diamonds may have a head or injuries to their body or their self,
Yep.
so that based upon a certain placement, king clubs or wherever it may be, within their own spread. So it's like she really, like you said, I'm able to really see from a full perspective of how everything played out, because she broke it down to the root of the issue or the cause.
Yep. Yep.
Someone did ask a question. Can y'all give insight? And yes, Gina, yeah, the first house, ascendant, north node, south node is in the ascendant and descendant. Mine's too. That is, we kind of talked about that a lot. That's always an interesting placement. I would, if y'all haven't looked at those placements, you may understand your partner a little bit, why they may need some space or have this what? Oh yeah, they hypocritical type of attribute. It could be a. I think can it, you think it make it semi hypocritical?
Well, I think like you said, like, okay, so you're in a relationship and your partner says, I need to go and, I don't know, I'm going to the gym or need some space. The thing is like, I think people that have these placements are like, why do you need space from me? What did I do so wrong that you want space from me? So we turn it back to like, but it's really, they just need a break, not from you personally. Maybe they just need like, that's that needing, like giving them their time. But those two that getting like, why? Where are you going? Like, why would you go somewhere? Why are you leaving me? Maybe that's an abandonment thing. Maybe there was something, that you didn't like, your daddy left when you were 5 or whatever, you're holding on to this person thinking that they're leaving you when they're just going to the fucking grocery store. Right? They're not like packing their shit and like, I'm out. I just need a day. And you got to let them have that. Because then if you like overly consume them, it's like you're I know with me being a jack of hearts, there's that like suffocation. Like I will suffocate you with my love. But I realized like that's it's not a reflection of like, I didn't do something wrong. I didn't do something bad that you have to like go and need this space. Nah, I just need to go for a run, or I just need, it's allowing that person to, operate from what their self-awareness rather than, projecting your bullshit onto them.
Because you probably need a space too.
Right. I see your ass too. No, I'm just kidding.
And like you said, you have to make sure you look out for yourself. And I think, like you said, it's a mirror. Like the other person knows probably like you do need space. There's, like you said, there's some abandonment issues. You need to look at yourself, look in the mirror, like what is it that you may need to fix and that you're not seeing clearly, especially like the North Node, South Node, and that Rahu can be somewhat blinding. It can you can be somewhat over obsessed where you're almost blind.
Yeah.
There's no connection between the reality and what's really taking place between the physical and mental. There's a disconnection somewhere.
Right. From yourself. More so than anything, it's from yourself, because you've put all that power into that person's hands. All of your own, because you're now, you're looking to them to make you happy or fulfill something that you're responsible, and then we get stuck and hurt and you don't love me. And, it's a vicious cycle, but, that's why I think understanding all the layers to those placements that you have, connecting the cards to them as well, it can only do you a higher service, because it's really beneficial to unpack it. Most of us are very unaware of it. And I think
because we didn't come into this with no book. Like that's what I tell people all the time. Like I wasn't born and no one gave me a book like, okay, Rashad, this is how your life is gonna go. Like you have a 2 of hearts in Pluto, like yeah, like your relationship 7 hearts and Venus, you're really like screwed. Like 2 hearts Pluto, 7 hearts Venus, you are screwed. You have the worst relationships in the
Is that what it says when you get on please fasten your seatbelt? You're ready for a bumpy ass ride.
But the Queen of Clubs has the 2 of hearts and Moon. Then the 3 of hearts, someone that made a post or comment, I made a post about the 3 of hearts being like childlike, being jolly, being like having to be open as far as like sense of creativity and inspiration it can bring. And someone said comment that was like, what does this mean if you have a 2 of hearts, 3 of hearts combination and in your relationship? And I responded, I was like, yeah, you just have to be open. You can't be too attached to like each other or within relationships. You have to make sure that you're aware of what you want, maybe, or something like that. I was talking about the 3 of hearts as far as like having to have fun in the relationship as well, having to create new relationships, having to be open,
spontaneous, have fun. Yeah, absolutely. That 3 of hearts is a trip.
And someone commented, a Queen of Clubs, said, oh, well, it maybe lead to polyamorous or attributes as well, or someone in between your relationship. I was like, dang, I didn't want to scare the lady, but true.
Well, I think too, because I think there's a question regarding the Queen of Clubs.
Yeah, and the Two of Hearts and the Moon. And the
Yeah, it's the
Ace of
cosmic moon.
Clubs. Yeah, yeah.
So, one really not want to be bothered
Cosmic
by
moon.
people, and then the other wanting to be bothered by people, going back and forth, switching it up. I think the Queen of Clubs, there's that, they have that Jack of Hearts and Pluto, so they can get stuck, but they're the benefit, like once again, ace, back to yourself, right? And then, wanting to partner, but I think it's having full, awareness of self, because those relationships, because the Queen of Clubs can be impatient with others, right? And I think that is where they have to have patience with themselves, right? And take that time to really trust that intuitive, that's that moon, that's that cosmic moon. So they have to trust the things that they feel, trust the things that they because they're very busy, that's that mental, like they see dead people. So so, they have to trust themselves before they can probably even trust another. And maybe that's why they do have some relationship struggles, because they have, more so than anything, trust your damn self, trust what you feel, trust what you know. And then, being able to kind of connect to the other, others, because I think they go back and forth with that because it flips.
Yeah, the Two of Hearts and the Ace of Clubs, trusting people and not getting caught up in the expectations of
Mhm.
people. Um,
Because they're not going to do it the way you would
question,
do it,
yeah,
right?
questioning everything about something,
Yeah.
like you said, that patience that has to
Hmm.
come out of that
Hmm.
is very, especially as it's Mars, like you said, it can be very impatient and short with people,
Very.
very critical of how many people talk and how they speak. Even the Ace of
The
Clubs.
nitpick. They'll nitpick at you. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And I don't think that they mean to. They really are. Like, they're trying to help you, but they have to
Yeah. Okay.
understand not everybody wants their, you know what I mean? Because they have that Jack of Hearts. They're like, here, you need a mask, and you need a mask, and you need information, and you need to know this, and you need to know this. Shut the fuck. I don't need to know shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I know, and they're probably doing it out of good intentions because they have this desire to serve, to help, but they tend to take themselves off of that royal space to go and like save everybody.
Captain Save Up.
Yeah,
This is supposed to
but
be like the kids program.
save like do you, and I've always said from the jump, the Queen of Clubs cannot bring themselves down to somebody else's level, because now you're pissed because you're out of your out, and now you are maybe critiquing them. You are, and now they're not even going to listen to you. So require them to rise up so that all the information that you want to give them, they will receive it, rather than you stoop down to their level. And now they're looking at you like, why are you telling me this? I don't need this. Now you're mad at them because you sacrificed yourself, right? Thinking that they needed this or needed you. And they're looking at you like, fuck away from me. So I think they have, like, that's that biggest thing, is never take yourself off that royal space, because you have divine knowledge, you have divine insight. Trust that shit, and make those people come up. They have to kind of reach a point to even get to. Remember, those queens and kings are like that spiritual self mastery. This is mastering that, really connecting and knowing your intuitive self and being guided by that higher place, and not having to skirt down to a lower level, because now you can come off as insensitive or demeaning in a way with the information.
Understanding everyone have their own process, everyone isn't going to learn as fast as them, and they can't sacrifice themselves always. Like you said, you would be the person to tell them that, right? of not coming down off their throne. And that's the queens and kings, like they always usually have to understand of knowing that how can you serve the world without being without sacrificing yourself. Like I said, the kings and queens that coming off the throne aspects, and the kings have to transform into aces. It's kind of like the first house, seventh house. It's that balance that you have to find, that balance. Where is that balance at for you? And like you said, hanging or making sure that your standards. That's why I said also, like the nines. Like I said, like those points of separations and standards, and those are natural things. Like it's always a balance, and that's why I think the cards are magical as well, because they have like a supporting karma and a challenging karma. There's always a balance of two energies that's going to play out from a particular situation. So having those standards, having high expectations of, and then also learning always. Also, sometimes the Queen of Clubs have to understand that you may not know everything as well. There's also points of your life that you're gonna have to let things go and understand and learn and grow for yourself also. And like you said, you don't have to be so nitpicky and all those things, and and have a universal understanding of there's other ways to do things also. And then also, what else can you learn from this person or this situation? Asking the right questions, always being, like you said, self-aware of everything around you, not to the point where you overly critical of people, but that you're learning, you're just gaining from that particular position or in life.
Yep, definitely. Well, this has been awesome. I do have to jump off. I'm pretty sure you probably have to get going soon too.
Yeah, I'm on spring break, so
nice. Yay.
up until next week, so I'm fine. But I have been working Amazon, making some extra coins too. But
good.
Yeah. But enjoy, and we'll see you all next week. If you have any questions, just hit us up. And Guided by the Cards, hit up on Instagram. RashadnCards is also on Instagram. Gina does weekly readings. I also get her magnesium rub, dope minerals, which is healing the world. So we'll see y'all later.
Bye, everybody. Take care.